The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Wednesday. It is March 18th, 2020. Thank you so much for joining us. Another rough night, 3 rough nights back to back for Bernie Sanders. He lost all 3 states that voted last night. There were more states that were scheduled to vote, but those states had enough wherewithal or enough foresight to cancel their primaries amid this pandemic that is spreading and killing quite a few people. So there's a lot to talk about, both in terms of the politics of the coronavirus, but also we have to start with the most obvious. Bernie Sanders is up against the ropes, and many people are calling for him to suspend his campaign. Blase Swaze. I mean, it didn't matter. Even if he won last night, people would have still called for him to, cancel his campaign. And now, ironically, here is either the disingenuousness or the straight cold-blooded Machiavellian calculations of Democratic establishment players. Yesterday, they told you everything's fine. Remember Simone Sanders on CNN? The CDC said it was fine to go out. And then later on that night, she was like, oh, no, CNN is saying that it's a real serious issue. You guys need to stay in. And I've seen a lot of takes like that, not just Simone Sanders. I mean, she's just doing her job, collecting her check. I don't, particularly fault her too much. You got to do what you got to do to eat, right? Even if that means telling people to go outside when the CDC go vote in locations that are going to have 100 people in it, even though the CDC said keep your groups as small as 10, no bigger than 10. But I've seen quite a few people with that take, not just Simone Sanders, who are now saying, oh, Bernie, it's Bernie's fault that people had to go out and vote yesterday and now they're going to get sick. No. You and your campaign made sure, all of you who support Joe Biden, made sure that, you were reporting people. People got literally suspended off Twitter because they were advising people to not go out and vote because of the coronavirus. And, I say all this to say, obviously we recognize the game, right? We see what's happening. We see how it's played out. We see the strategery around it. And I must say that I am extremely proud of the Democrats. No, hear me out. Don't cut off the podcast yet. I'm proud to see that they actually do have a backbone and a spine. All the way. Hell, they have more of a spine than most of us on the left. Most of us on the left, we're like, well, you know what? Elections matter, but life matters more. So you might want to stay your ass home. That's how most of us on the left were. We were like, oh, hell no, bump that. We're not going out to vote. Not in the middle of this pandemic. We're not going out here and getting a virus and just to vote for who? Please. But not centrists, not establishment Democrats. They were like, F that. Carry your ass to the poll. Take some Kleenex. Take a hazmat suit. Anything we've got to do to stop Bernie Sanders. There's literally some tweets that I saw yesterday. And I must say, I am proud to see that the Democrats have a backbone and a spine, and they're able to organize. They're able to consolidate ranks. They're able to do all of the Machiavellian machinations that we thought the Republicans were capable of doing. The Democrats have shown that they're able to do it, just not against not against Republicans. They're able to do it against progressives, and they're able to do it to stop Bernie Sanders. And I use that language very specifically, as I said in the Guardian piece I wrote yesterday. I use that language very specifically because they haven't, or actually, did that part get cut? I can't remember, but I digress. I am proud to see that they have a backbone, but they've never used this technique, this level of machinations. They've never used this to fight back against Republicans, ever. They don't have they always capitulate. They capitulate before they even get to Republicans. More and more I read about the Obama presidency, the more and more I see that he was surrounded by, and this is not, what I'm getting ready to say is not to insulate Barack Obama from critique. But books like Confidence Men and other books about the Obama presidency shows that he was surrounded by people who insisted that he capitulate to Republicans before they even presented it to Republicans. The most recent I read was about the bailout. President Obama wanted to go with a full $1 trillion worth of a bailout at the onset of the 2008 recession. And his staff, some of his top staff, came to him and said, Republicans aren't going to go for that, so we need to reduce it. So before they even went to Republicans, Democrats showed that they were willing to capitulate before they even went. It's like a kid who's in trouble with their parents, and they try to go to their parents and negotiate with their parents and give them everything. Like, oh, I'll clean my room. You could ground me. You could ground me for a month. I'll wash the dishes, and I'll take the trash out every day. Just don't punish me. You're punishing yourself, you morons. And this is the nature of the Democratic Party at this point. And so, again, I say that I recognize the machinations, and I know that the engagement is not in good faith. And I think the only thing that actually has the capacity to trigger me in this entire conversation is the gaslighting. I'm allergic to gaslighting. It makes me very, very, it infuriates me. Like, that's the one thing that will push me over the edge and be like, f it all, burn it all down, is gaslighting. But thankfully I have learned how to compartmentalize that rage, because this is what politics is, right? Politics is all about gaslighting, right? Even with Joe Biden, as he announced gave his victory speech last night, he was like, I don't always agree with Bernie Sanders, but, and his tactics, but, we have to really appeal to his voters so that we can come together. No, bitch, that's gaslighting. And we shall have no parts of that. But listen, the real message is, I was just to talk to the Bernie supporters, listen, and the progressive movement. Actually, before I even give that, let me make something crystal clear to people. I know that the nature of centrist and Republican politics is that it is centered around their cult of personality. And they really are projecting as hard as they can the idea that the real cult of personality is the Bernie Sanders support group, base of voters. They are really, but that's another example of gaslighting, because I think it's painfully clear, even to Bernie Sanders, that his support from the left is tenuous at best. I don't know of any other group that is as cold and calculating in terms of their support for or against somebody, right? Their fight against somebody, based on policies than the left. There's nobody else who does it. If Bernie Sanders wavered on a single issue, he would catch hell from the left. I mean, this is verifiable, right? This is an objective truth that they cannot deny. We will not support Bernie Sanders if he did not support our policies. What we've seen on their side of the equation, is the fact that they're willing to go no matter how far they have to go to support their personality, to support their favorite neoliberal. They will go all the way to the right. Policy be damned. There's not a single policy that these people have not shown that they're willing to flip on in order to justify their support for their favorite neoliberal. And so the question really doesn't even have to be begged. Like it's self-evident, but because of the tremendous amount of projection and gaslighting, the popular argument is that Bernie Sanders supporters are a cult of personality. When in reality, Bernie Sanders supporters aren't really Bernie Sanders supporters, right? We will, all of us have demonstrated that we will turn on Bernie Sanders at any given moment that he does not support progressive policies. So the real question is, why the hell are you in politics? Because we made it really clear why we're in politics. We're in politics because we're fighting for specific things. Policy. And really, we'll get to the fact that the centrists have apparently won again, right? Which means they're going to lose again because they lost to Donald Trump. But I digress. We'll get to that entire argument after the patron party. But first, I just want to make sure that people are abundantly aware of the fact that, no. See, here's the thing. Some people are completely deluded, and they really believe that their support for, let's say, Kamala or for Joe Biden, I had a little introduction to the K-Hive yesterday, because I had to call Kamala Harris out about this little pathetic 500. It's pathetic and paltry and pitiful $500 a month that she floated out there, only to find out that it was a stupid ass idea. So I met a couple of people from the K-Hive yesterday. And what's hilarious about them is that some of them actually think that they're operating in good faith. Some of them actually believe that they're operating in, or they're not being disingenuous. Others, on the other hand, come in specifically with the intention of manipulating and spinning the conversation, projecting, using whataboutisms, and using all the bad faith techniques in order to just score some points. Fine. I mean, I get it. Game recognizes game. The people I actually feel sorry for are those who believe that they're operating in good faith, when in reality, they have been inculcated by a cult of personality. Like they are in a cult of personality that justifies anything to stop the progressive movement. I'll say this if I haven't already said it. No, actually, I did say it, and I need to say it again. I'm proud of the Democratic Party. Nice Freudian slip there. I'm proud of the Democratic Party because they've shown that they are able to fight. They're just not able to fight Republicans, right? They are able to suppress the leftist movement, the leftist wing of their party. And then I think the difference is in 2020 that there's a good possibility that these people that they suppressed, the progressive movement that they suppressed, will no longer try to be a part of their party, right? I keep asking if these are irreconcilable differences. And quite possibly they are, and all in the backdrop of this entire conversation, obviously, is the coronavirus and how that is going to change things. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in this episode. But the coronavirus lingering in the backdrop is really showing how tenuous this social contract is to begin with, why the primaries really may not matter at all in just a few days. So in a lot of respects, all that people went through yesterday in order to secure the victory for Joe Biden, all of the people concentrated in these polling precincts, hundreds of people waiting in line for hours in order to vote in a crowded room during a pandemic, all of the machinations that they went through to stop Bernie Sanders. And the truth of the matter is, we really have no idea what politics are going to look like when people start dying from the coronavirus. Then I also have to talk about all the people who don't believe the coronavirus is real. Like there's a level of stupidity here that I'm just going to call out. Like, F it, just call it out across the board. Level of stupidity, level of disingenuousness. And that is the nature of American politics, right? That's where we are. And that's the saddest statement. I mean, even in the midst of all this, you now have the president of the United States circling back and saying, I always thought it was a pandemic. I always thought I always thought that it was going to be bad. And we always did everything we could from the beginning. Like, you gaslighting Orange Julius looking mother. Yeah, I mean, seriously. And the problem is that we have gotten to a stage in American politics where so long as people who follow a cult leader like Donald Trump, so long as Donald Trump gives them something to cling to in order to fight on his behalf so that they can win the petty and fatuous arguments of social media, that's all they care about. In other words, Donald Trump supporters, all they really need is to make sure that the president gives them a lie that they can weaponize and fight on behalf of. In other words, when Donald Trump is out here looking like a moron because he's not doing a good job with the coronavirus, people are like, I don't know, 60% of people disapprove of how Donald Trump is handling this, which is the actual number, right? You would think it would be higher. But when he was feckless, it was about 60% of people who didn't support him. And now Donald Trump has come back full circle saying that, I've been involved. I believe that this was a pandemic from the beginning. And now all of a sudden it's split along party lines on who approves of his handling of the coronavirus. Why do I mention that? I mention that because it's the same thing across the board for any politician. So long as your favorite politician gives you a lie, this is how you know you're in a cult of personality. Do you follow your leader when they lie or when they distort the truth? Because that's exactly what Donald Trump supporters have done with the coronavirus. Simultaneously, this is exactly what Joe Biden supporters are doing. This is exactly what Kamala Harris supporters are doing. We'll get into all those specifics after the patron party. But tell me, who's really in the cult of personality? Because I could tell you one thing. Had Bernie Sanders come out yesterday with a proposal that suggested that that working families get $500 a month in assistance, like Kamala Harris did in response to this coronavirus, I'm pretty damn sure that every single one of us who flipped over tables because of how ridiculous that suggestion was from Kamala Harris would have flipped over tables for Bernie Sanders too. And that is the difference. So with all of the intentional gaslighting and all of these political strategic use of gaslighting and projection, calling Bernie Sanders supporters a cult of personality, the objective factual reality is that you all are moving further and further right just to justify your support for people like Mayor Bloomberg. I mean, you guys were considering getting in bed with a right-wing Republican oligarch in order to stop Bernie Sanders. I mean, and in order to, really, who's the cult of personality here? Who is really willing to follow their leader into the abyss? Donald Trump supporters? Sure, absolutely, without a doubt. They're the worst. Equal only to centrist Democrats who are willing. There's no place to the right that they're not willing to go. There's no policy that they're not willing to flip on, so long as that they can either be in the establishment quite literally and preserve their power, right? Bernie Sanders was an existential threat to their institutional power, or you're doing it for bragging rights on social media. I am much happier with my principles. And if you're fighting against what I'm fighting for, then we aren't on the same team. We don't have to be friends or associates. I don't have to have your approval. I'm fighting for something specific. And if you're fighting against me, then we are not friends. We are not in the same tent. We don't have anything in common. Okay. Now, all that said, we took a pretty big L last night. I'll talk about that after the patron party and what's next in a few minutes. We'll be right back.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
And here we go. A very special welcome to Ethan. Thank you for becoming a patron. Cole Lundborg, thank you for becoming a patron. Olivia Lark, thank you for becoming a patron. Ron, thank you so much for becoming a patron. India Jones. Now, I'm not going to lie. When I first read that, I was like, Indiana Jones. Welcome aboard, India. I know you heard that so many times through your life. I apologize for that cornball joke. Craig Johnson, thank you so much for becoming a patron. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show and becoming a patron, where you get access to twice the amount of content and none of the advertisements like you're going to hear right about now. Welcome back. Yep. All right. Okay. Listen. Wow. I didn't realize this comeback music was so long. I'm gonna have to cut that a little short. Okay, anyway. So listen, last night we took an L. Without a doubt. All of the factors, all of the forces that play into it. I mean, the L started, and by L, for those of you who don't know, that means the loss. We took the loss. The L was put into motion when centrist Democrats coalesced around Joe Biden. Right? We kind of saw that move, and I recognized it at the time. I was like, hot damn, pretty good move, centrist, right? I don't think it's the right guy to gather around, to coalesce around. I think Joe Biden is a huge liability, and I don't care how much you pump him with, whatever you pumped him with during the debate Sunday night. We all know that Joe Biden is suffering from severe cognitive decline, and Donald Trump is going to be extremely effective at exploiting that. Not just in advertisements. I'm talking about exploiting it during the debate. So just, put the marker there. But I digress. The point is that they coalesced, and that was the political move that was necessary to stop Bernie Sanders. At least it appears like it's over. I do believe that he's going to probably stay in a little bit longer. And I also, again, I have to say, in the backdrop of all this, it's going to be in the foreground, right? It's kind of like a movie. If you're watching a movie and you hear a news reporter in the background, 100% of the time it's foreshadowing, right? And in the backdrop, in the background on the news station, while we talk about politics, is the coronavirus. And I'm not really quite sure how that is going to play into the overall election. Quite literally, everything that we're talking about right now could be null and void, mute, and irrelevant because of the severity of the coronavirus, which we'll talk about in another segment. But all of that said, this was set into motion by the brilliant move of the centrists to coalesce around a single candidate. I just think that they picked the wrong candidate. Okay. It was sufficient to stop Bernie Sanders, but it's not going to be sufficient to stop Donald Trump. I really do not believe it's going to be the case, specifically for many reasons. I mean, centrists have proven that they have an uncanny ability to lose to Republicans. But that's besides the point. Let's talk about the loss, because I know there's some people who are listening to this just to see how I'm going to respond to the loss. I'm going to respond to the loss the same way I responded last week, which is, folks, you cannot win unless you're prepared to lose. Period. Okay? As much of an empty platitude as that is, it's one of my aphorisms, it's still the truth. Like, you cannot take the chance of winning unless you take the risk of losing. I managed to mess it up and not even say it as good as I did the first time, but whatever. You get the point. The point is simply this. You can't be in politics if you're not prepared to lose, because you're going to lose. It's going to happen. Sometimes you lose frequently. It happens. Nobody stays. Only people who stay winning in this world are evil people. Like the Republican Party, they keep winning because you have feckless Democrats who are hopelessly incapable of stopping them. So Republicans stay winning until they get arrested for whatever catches up with them in the long run. But the point is that you don't always win. You're not going to always win. And I could tell you this from personal experience. And the number one thing I could tell you right now, today, okay, let me just put all the tongue-in-cheek stuff aside and just talk to you realistic for a second. The number one thing I could tell you today is don't make any hasty decisions today. Twitter is a great platform to vent, but I would almost say save your venting as much as you can, right? You gotta get catharsis somehow, but save your venting and save your response in terms of what you want to do. Because today's not the day that you're going to see clearly. You're not going to see clearly today. You can't see clearly. We're all furious. We're all heartbroken. We're all upset. It was a big loss, right? It's a complete turnabout from how everything started, which is why I'm really thoroughly impressed by the centrist Democrats being able to maneuver like Republicans do, just never against Republicans. They can do this type of skillful maneuvering to suppress progressives. But I digress. That's not the point of this segment. The point of this segment is I'm not going to tell you to hold your head up, because that suggests that you're down on our fight. I'm just going to say, take a step back. Not long at all. Take a day or two away for you to get your wits about you and really come up with your next move. And I say your next move because collectively we have to find our next move. But you need to find your next move for you. Don't make any hasty decisions yet. Don't black pill. Don't, just kind of breathe. I mean, it's not as though we don't have something very significant to consume ourselves with. Coronavirus. I mean, the reality of what's lingering around us should be sobering enough for people to look at the loss that we took last night and be like, and put it in perspective and be like, okay, yeah, last night was bad. Yes, this really sucks. Yes, centrist Democrats, really, the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, they are terrible. And that's me just finding the nicest word that I could possibly put in that space. Yes, all of those things are true, but the world is changing right underneath us, like right before our eyes. the world is changing in a significant fashion. There's been more class consciousness awakened by the coronavirus than anything we could have done in this campaign. The fact that rent is still being charged, but people aren't getting any income assistance. I mean, people are being told not to go to work, but they're not getting any income assistance. Rich people are getting tests for the coronavirus, while sick people are like, how the fuck do I? Even better than that, people who thought they were rich, people who probably have really good jobs, they make probably $250,000 a year. They can't get a test because NBA players are getting tests. Idris Elba, love them all those people, great. Kevin Durant got a test. Big fan of Kevin Durant. Could very well be one of the greatest basketball players of our time if he had a little grit to him, but I digress. The point is class consciousness is being awakened, whatever. It's early in the morning. My grammar is always over the place. Like, the only time I get my grammar right is when I'm writing. Not on Twitter. So stupid. Oh man, I'm so stupid. Why do you guys even listen to this show? I don't know. I'm up to about 10,000 downloads a day, which is pretty respectable. But anyway, the point is that there are difficult times ahead that are not in any way related to the politics of the primaries, right? And so it's not as though you don't have something that you should be focused on, which is protecting your personal health and protecting the health of your friends and your family. Okay. And we'll talk about the coronavirus more in a second. But what I'm trying to say to the people who are really, really disillusioned about last night, I have to tell you this. Let me tell you this. Okay. The biggest comeback that you've ever seen is probably me personally. I had to sit on a loss that was painful, that was bitter, that quite frankly could have landed me in jail if I had gotten my hands on some people. Yeah, it's a possibility. It was so bitter that I'm not sure how I would have responded if I saw the culprits in person. I've taken quite a few losses like that. And what I've learned, the most powerful thing that you can do when you take a bitter loss is to not lash out. You got to not lash out publicly. Let's be clear. Lash out privately because, that's your business. That's between you and the wall, the hole in the wall at your house. Okay. But publicly, not to lash out. One, because you want to rob these people of any opportunity of enjoying and reveling in your suffering and your anguish. Okay. But then two, also because I think it is extremely beneficial to be able to take a step back from all of the hustle and the bustle and all the tweeting and all of the energy that we poured on social media and canvassing and knocking on doors and all of the texting and all the phone calls, all the things that you did intensely for the last 2 years to try to win this campaign. It is extremely healthy to take a step back and regroup. Not only does that allow you time to think and regroup, but it also robs those people who would like to gloat in your pain. It robs them of the opportunity. You just lay low and you strategize. That's what I had to do. Multiple times over the last 4 years, I have had to take the L, take a step back, and realize that sometimes justice does not come when you want it to. You regroup, you get your wits about you, you organize, but most importantly, you continue doing the work of the movement. Because had I not continued doing the work of the movement in the midst of the biggest L's of my life over the last 4 years, L after L after L, well, then I would not have had the success that I had with the Michael Bloomberg story. And that's just one. That's just one example, right? But the point is, and this is not, obviously it's not going to work the same way for everybody, but the point is that regroup, breathe, stretch, shake, let it go. Like, just take a minute and not give your rivals the pleasure of seeing you infuriated. but not just for the sake of robbing them of the opportunity to gloat in your pain, but also for the sake of keeping your wits about you long enough so that you can get back in the fight. Because ultimately, like I said last week, it doesn't matter if it's 2 months or 2 years. I know that you, a person who fights for justice, will always come back to the fight. Okay, yeah, I'm going to jam pack this public episode. I'm going to jam it full of everything that I've got. And then the bonus episode for patrons that continues after the closing music, we'll go even deeper. What do we do next? I'm going to be honest. So I saw somebody on Twitter, and actually let me go. I want to give credit to that person. So let me go take a look at it now. I'll describe it to you, and then I'll give them credit once I find them. But someone on Twitter made a really good suggestion, and they were like, honestly, we should just go radio silent over the next couple of months, because they don't own us. Okay, let me just read it. This is from Karen Brookshire at KL Brookshire on Twitter. She said, I'm thinking that when this primary is over, if the DNC installs Joe as their nominee, we should all consider going radio silent on the general election. Like no post or comments regarding that race. Let their trolls duke it out without us. I honestly won't give a shit about it. I agree with that sentiment. One of the things I've been saying since I saw the consolidation of the conservative moderate Voltron, the conservative moderate centrist Democrat Voltron, was the fact that we do not have to participate. We can vote. You can vote. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your vote. That's your prerogative. Vote for Joe Biden. Write in your mama. I don't care. That's your prerogative. But what they cannot force us to do is to fight on their behalf in the primaries. And if they think their battle with Bernie Bros on Twitter was horrible, wait till they get locked in with Make America Great Again. But more importantly than just abandoning them and let them fend for themselves, actually, let me make something clear. We are not the same, right? We're fighting for different things. They're fighting to stop Medicare for all. We're fighting for Medicare for all. So why would we lift a finger to help them? Now, maybe you say, oh, well, we want to lift a finger to help them to stop Donald Trump. Totally. That's your call for it. Go for it. I'm not going to criticize you nor try to shame you. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But if somebody else in my audience says I'm not voting for a Democrat again the rest of my life, I'm not going to shame them either. But what none of us have to do is to try to find the energy to fight on behalf of Joe Biden and Joe Biden supporters. Why? Who do we owe it to? Really, seriously, think about it. Now, if you so choose to, cool. That's fine. But I think the very best strategy here is to just be quiet. And not just be quiet and walk away and take our marbles home, but be quiet and organize and continue organizing. Now, I have to say this, and I think I tried to say it earlier, but I was just kind of caught up in being stupid and silly. But this is what I was really trying to say. These battles are long fought battles. You see how long Bernie Sanders fought, and you see he still doesn't have all of the victory that his fight suggests that he should have. That's because I believe Bernie Sanders was the guy to get us this far. But Bernie's been fighting for this shit for like 40 years. Okay. And we rock with him because he consistently rocks with the policies that we believe in. So therefore, why would you, I understand why you would feel like you want to give up. But when you take a second to breathe and comport yourself, why would you give up after just 5 years of fighting for progressive change? I've been fighting for my podcast for 5 years. Don't you think fighting for progressive policies? When I say progressive policies, I don't mean progressive. I mean policies that are going to change people's lives. I don't give a damn about the label of progressive, to be quite honest with you. I'm talking about policies that are going to change people's lives for the better. Working families, The working party, not party, but the working class of this country is the most diverse group of people in the country. It is the most representative body of any subset in this country. So to come full circle, if I have been willing to fight on behalf of this little pitiful podcast for 5 years and refuse to throw in the towel, I mean, why would I throw in the towel now? It's actually picking up steam. But it took 5 years to get here. Then why on earth would you even consider throwing in the towel after this loss? In these 5 years, I have lost 4 major contracts. When I say major, I mean life-changing contracts. I have lost a whole lot of money. I can't even tell you how much money I've lost. I've lost friends. I've lost loved ones, like literal death. Life happened in between me losing all these professional contracts. Life was still happening. And yet I'm still here. Now, I understand that I'm here as a result of this this incapability. Completely incapable of quitting. That's my drug. My drug is I don't know how to stop. And I'm hoping I can sell you that drug today. That's a good soundbite. Somebody clip that. I'm hoping that I can convince you that even though you feel down today, that you should just take a step back, take a breather, regroup, get your head about you, and then look at what you were fighting for in the first place. We weren't fighting just to beat centrists. We weren't fighting just for Bernie Sanders. We were fighting to change the world to something that's fundamentally better for everyone. That fight doesn't go away just because so far it looks like we've lost this primary. In fact, it should show you that this fight has to take place on levels that go beyond electoral politics. We'll talk about that more in a second. Yep. Okay, so before I continue talking about all that other stuff, let me shift gears to the coronavirus. I hope that we are wrong. I hope that this is all one big conspiracy started by the government in order to do whatever. And that means that not a lot of people are about to die. What fascinates me and irritates me, quite honestly, let me tell you, the real thing that's pissed me off this morning, I'm not triggered by the loss last night, to be quite honest with you. I'm cool on that. What's pissing me the hell off today is the fact that you have so many people across this country who just outright reject everything that's being said by the CDC, and they are opting to go with their inner wisdom and their third eye that's telling them that this is a big conspiracy from the government. All over the place, on Facebook, on Twitter. He's got people. And the only reason I'm lifting up these naysayers is because here's the irony of this. Like, not even the irony, but here's the very simple calculus, right? If I'm wrong, if all of us are wrong, then holy shit, that's wonderful. We're going to all go to the beach this summer and we're going to have a great time. Like, holy shit, I hope we're wrong. Okay? But if you're wrong and the behavior pattern that you're carrying on, you are literally going to be the cause of thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of people dying. You're going to contribute to that. So that being the case, doesn't it just seem logical to err on the side of caution? Right? And then to use our platforms to do like I've seen so many videos of people who are like stars and celebrities, and they are wholesale dismissing this. And they're like, what that one pop artist, like, she's a grown woman, should have known better. I can't think of Vanessa something, where she was like, oh, well, if everybody literally gets it, then most of us are going to live. Yeah, but in America, that means almost 5 million people died in the span of 1 year. That generally means you can't have proper burial for all of them, and you're going to have some mass graves. I don't think that's really something we want to just, sneeze at. But it's entirely infuriating because it shows that there is another component to this virus is exposing us on every single level. I've been saying this for 2-3 weeks now. The people who are self-quarantining, you're finding out now that it's exposing you at home. Whatever problems you had at home, you're going to have to confront them. Right. So we're not absolved of the problems of the coronavirus just because we're quarantined. We just are quarantined and not going to get sick with it, knock on wood, like this, knock on wood. But we're still being exposed in our homes. Whatever problems you had in your homes that you were avoiding, you can't avoid that shit now. You got to confront that shit head on because you're living with it every single day, all day. But on the flip side, it is exposing our government. It's exposing how completely feckless our government is. Our politicians of both political parties, they're feckless. They're scattering. Everyone's scattering to have the best recommendation, and no one's actually making policy. No one's actually implementing these things. The Democrats, let me go all the way back to Kamala Harris. Yesterday, she put out a tweet talking about a plan that she wrote that she thinks that now is the perfect time for it. Right. And if the plan offers $500 a month per household. An hour later, after being eviscerated on Twitter because of how ridiculous that suggestion was, then she came out with a caveat saying, to be clear, I was talking about the bill I wrote in 2018. But what I'm talking about now is I'm going to work on something far more robust. I'm sorry, you put out an idea. You floated an idea on Twitter. You wanted to be able to get some applause and some likes with the plan that you. So here's a real question. If your first tweet, Kamala, wasn't really a suggestion of how we fix the problem right now, then what the entire hell are you doing floating? You just needed some attention? Because that's not a solution to the crisis that we're having right now. If you're not offering it as a solution to the crisis that we're having right now, kindly don't offer it at all. That's as nice as you're going to ever get anything from me. That's the nicest as I had at least 30 dozen ways in my head just then that I could have ended that sentence and it would have been epic and it would have just totally pissed Kamala fans off. So I'm going to tell you, that's the nicest you're going to ever get me to say anything. If you did not offer it as a suggestion, why are you offering it at all? Again, I'm going to be as nice as I possibly can. What she did was she offered it as a suggestion because she wanted to get in on the movement of everyone who was saying, oh, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. And then she found out an hour later that, oh, nobody liked your idea because your idea is stupid. Your idea is insufficient, woefully insufficient, which is my favorite phrase of this election cycle. Woefully insufficient. But more importantly than just Kamala, right? And I'm only pointing out that about Kamala because I want her Kamala fans to get pissed off at me. Not really, but they're going to get pissed off anyway. I don't do things just to piss people off. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm lying. Okay. The real problem is that nobody is actually implementing any solutions. And so now they are so far behind. We should have instituted a universal basic income last week. This week, if the CDC and everything that all the experts, which I fully believe them, if what they're saying is true, this week, we should have been making plans on how we deliver food to millions of households across this country during a pandemic when people are not going to be able to go to the store without fear of dying from the plague. Right? So we're behind the 8 ball, and the coronavirus is exposing the fact that our leaders are feckless and incapable of leading us through this crisis. So it's exposing, you thought I forgot where I was. No. Coronavirus is exposing people at home, people who are quarantining. The truth comes out, whether you really like your spouse or not, or your partner or not, or your roommate or not, all that shit's coming out in this quarantine. For those of the people out there, the truth is coming out because now you guys are you're living a whole different experience than the rest of us. Or you're getting ready to. I hope we're wrong, but if what the doctors are saying is right, A lot of you are going to be who are refusing to self-quarantine. You're going to be banging on the doors of hospitals, trying to get help in the emergency room, trying to get help. And they're simply not going to be able to help you because they are at capacity, because so many people refuse to listen to good counsel. Okay. So, I mean, it's exposing that. It's exposing the federal government. It's exposing Donald Trump. It's exposing it's exposing everybody. It's exposing the class divide in our country. It's exposing the fact that rich people are getting tests and poor people are not. It's exposing the fact that they're going to be, I mean, I'm sorry, but listen, administration, people who worked in hospital administration, you tell me, is there any possibility that a rich person can come in to a private hospital and have all the money of God and make some donation and get the treatment that a poor person couldn't get? Or are you telling me that in every single circumstance, under no circumstance, will there be special privileges for people who have more money? I'm sorry. I don't believe I have a hard time believing that, because our system works like that on any given day of the week. There's preference to people who have money. So what do you think is going to do in a pandemic? This is not an accusation against doctors whatsoever. I think doctors are going to serve whoever's in front of them. But who decides who gets in front of you? I believe this is really exposing every level of our system, all of the idiocy in our system, all of the fecklessness in our system, all of the disingenuousness in our system. This virus is exposing it all. Yeah. All right. A whole lot more to go. That's it for the public show. I'm going to do the rest for our patrons. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show to get access to the full content, twice the content, none of the advertisements. Patrons, I'll see you in a few minutes. Everyone else, thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.